So just that alone, they recoup the $2,500 that they spent. They're probably, I talked to them today, and they're looking at joining the auditing opportunity. So they're looking at savings there. We do have a guarantee that if you don't recoup the $5,300, we refund that. But we're so confident. We're seeing 10% savings in road salt. I know of a broker that submitted a bid for employee benefits, and it was for 9 employees. He submitted 19% off the value of what they're paying right now for employee benefits. So there's huge potential there for everybody to get savings between 10 to 20% depending on the commodity that they're getting.
So in the agreement then there is a clause that if $5,300 isn't recouped, then it would be the difference would be refunded.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Any other questions from councillors? Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, purchasing is near and dear to my heart. I was a former purchaser for a large Canadian company. And with all due respect, it's not for all items. We did try this very early on in my former career, and I can tell you that it's not all roses. For instance, you had companies that didn't want to bid because it discourages competition. It discourages relationships, which I'm sure you see that now. So not all companies want to join in. So maybe a company we're already dealing with, they want no part of bidding in a large consortium. And for them, it could be as simple as for them to be able to jump into the bid, well, they've got to hire 10 more trucks or 100 more employees, or they can't get there. And it's got its warts, for sure, like losing control of your purchasing policy. It does discourage local businesses. I've seen it. I was part of it, and we made purchases that destroyed in Ottawa, that destroyed local companies in the Ottawa region, because you think of your own backyard, but with these companies now you're talking internationally. So I'd seen a lot of companies dry up. So it could be from the mom and pops to the coffee center to whatever. So I think council should keep that in consideration when we're discussing items like this. We want to encourage local businesses as well. So I don't know whether we can opt in and out of certain categories or items or commodities, but I think we need to be very, very careful moving forward with it, because it does come down to, there is cost to be associated with it. There's whether you know it or not, there's levels of margins that get built in as well. So yes, sometimes there's savings, but not always, because people are getting paid somewhere along the line.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because although you're a member, you're not required to participate in every opportunity that the group wants to participate in. You do have the option to opt out, but the only requirement we say is if you decide to opt in, we want you to lock in, because we need those volumes to be firm to get those maximum savings on the volume that's being there. And then you have to wait till the contract expires before you can piggyback onto it. But it is what it is, right? And like I mentioned, we are very much pro local businesses. And a lot of the commodities, although there's 30 of them, not necessarily all of them are for the full group across Eastern Ontario. As I mentioned, some have to stay local just because of where their location, and it just doesn't make sense. And if you decide not to opt in as within the group, there's nothing saying that you can't combine yourself with a smaller volume within your local surrounding municipalities to participate and promote the smaller businesses that just can't do those higher volumes. So it's totally flexible, and very much the smaller municipalities are worried about losing control, and your purchasing policies stay in effect. That doesn't change, because most of the municipalities right now have a clause in their policy saying wherever possible to participate in group or joint purchasing efforts if it's advantageous to you to do so. and all your other policies stay in effect. So your spending authorities don't change. Your authority to go to council and get decisions made, nothing changes. All it is we're administering the process to save your staff time and effort and to maximize those volumes. That's the only role that we're playing in this.
Okay. Christine, did you have anything to add?
No, I just, the only thing I wanted to ask, but you just covered it, Jennifer, about the opting out and the opportunity to, because obviously some opportunities will suit and some opportunities won't.
Correct. Okay, well, thank you. And if you have any further questions, on the slide is my contact information. Don't hesitate if you're driving home, you go, why didn't I ask her that question? Don't hesitate. I love questions, and it makes it a better process if I get feedback from everybody. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So it'll come up in our budget discussions, whether or not at that time. I think that's the most appropriate, and Marcia will bring that forward. And again, probably just compare some of the numbers so that we have an understanding of road salt purchases as an example. So number 5 on the list is staff overtime policy. Yes. Sure. So we can get Kathy up to. Yes.
I've just made a suggestion that because Detachment Commander Colin Slight's been patiently waiting, we have. Are you sure? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There's only one more. So staff overtime policy, and is Erica presenting this? She's done the report.
Do you wish to?
Okay.
Get to the mic.
Welcome, Erica.
Are we good? Yeah, we're on. Okay, cool. Yes, I have been noticing when I'm doing payroll that we're getting close. Well, most of us are over our allotted 70 hours per calendar year. Now, you each were given a spreadsheet showing just some of the, well, basically all the meetings that we've had and the times that that we've incurred for overtime. Yes. Now, when this policy was originally put out, it was whenever, before the former council, when there was an evening, when there was a day meeting and then an evening meeting. And we didn't add up that much time. Now, my own experience, I did, whenever I was doing the administrative assistant position, I did get a lot of extra overtime because I was taking the minutes. And a lot of the staff members were not here because they weren't asked. That's whenever the former CAO was here, but whenever Christine came in, she wanted to have all staff members present for their expertise. So then more staff was getting more hours.
Was there a review of employment standards with regards to management ability to have overtime and non-management ability to have overtime?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And I guess the question is, in the job descriptions, does it have a requirement to attend or be longer than the normal hours of 8:30 to 4 for particularly management who, according to employment standards, are not entitled to overtime?
I don't have a specific. I don't know if it's in each job description. I did think, though, at one time that we had looked into the wording for eligibility of overtime. And I think there was a difference between being paid, the whole management question, overtime banked, time in lieu was completely different, in a different category than management being paid out for their overtime.
Like right now, we don't get paid out, we just take our time in lieu. So there's no...
And that has been the
Yes.
long-standing policy here.
As far as long as I've been here.
Certainly for management who are on salary, I believe it's time in lieu, and in fact, employment standards states that they're not entitled to overtime, that it is part of their salary, and this overtime policy was brought into place to mirror the fact that the county employees, which most, like the management employees, were allowed to bank up to 2 weeks of overtime. Anything above and beyond that was to be included in their salary, and that's what I would recommend, that it stay that way, that it is part of the salary, and this is just a bonus that was given years ago to bank the 70 hours to use as time off in lieu, and like I said, management, according to employment standards, are not entitled to overtime. Christine.
Further to that, the point that I wanted to make simply is that we have mirrored the county policy, and the county has day meetings. So I'm not. We're kind of in an apples and oranges situation here.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Now I'll go back to and allude to what Christina said, because the previous council, we would have a day meeting, council meeting, as well as we would have a day committee meetings during the day, which would, at that point, staff would be here, but there was not any extra hours being accumulated. Now that we've gone to this process, where they're all evening meetings, I think we have to bite the bullet. If that's what we want to continue to do, then we're going to have to up the ante with our staff and allow them to bank more days. It's as simple as that, and to me, it's just a matter of doing business. Either we change back to the former way it was, or we proceed the way it is, and it's just part of business.
So, Councillor McLaughlin, if we look at the amount of hours that totals up, it totals up to 72.05. So what I'm recommending is that 2.05 hours for management employees, that according to employment standards is included in their salary, be on their own time. And most municipalities do follow this policy, the 70 hours for two weeks, and not just the county, but a lot of municipalities did follow the county's implementation of this, because it also includes time that people are working at night to prepare for information for the next day or whatever, not necessarily just minutes and meetings. Anything above and beyond the 70 hours is, I can tell you myself, I've reached and exceeded my 70 hours where I work, and the rest is on me, and it's part of my salary. Mayor Johnson.
We could also take into consideration that we don't need all of the staff. If the staff is not required for our meeting, then we don't need them to be here.
I asked specifically individual staff members who have important agenda items to attend.
Just those.
Yes. Yeah, that's the current practice.
And when those agenda items are complete, are they allowed to go to leave?
Normally, but there are times when people have asked me that there's a particular topic of interest, or they find that there's some relevancy to a further item relating to their department, or it's something they want to know about. In that case, if you're interested and there's something that you need to hear, I have allowed that.
Like Prime example, my hours are lower because I haven't been doing the minutes, so I haven't been attending any of the meetings. Like, I'm here
Correct.
now because the last one too,
Absolutely.
I'm helping Karen, and the last meeting I did the minutes. But other than that, whenever Karen feels comfortable, unless there's something that does come up on the agenda, there's no real need for me to attend unless Christine requests me to be here, or the council does.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, there is a difference. I don't know if this policy that's put in place applies to all of the employees or just the management. It says management employees. I don't know if management has been defined, who those managers are with regards to the 70 hours. There's no definition in this report as to who it applies to, but certainly somebody in the position of administrative assistant is not management and therefore entitled, according to employment standards, to overtime.
That's correct.
Mayor Johnson.
Isn't all salary staff fall under that?
Management. It says management professional employees. And again, it's not defined, so I don't know what they are, who they include, what positions they include.
Just asking.
A prime example, the management gets time, but the administrative assistant, they get time and a half.
According to employment
Yes,
standards,
that's correct, yeah.
that's the way they have to be paid or banked.
Yes.
Correct. Councillor Olmsted.
Is it possible, I know you're maybe the only one at the table that may not be able to look at it, but is it possible we can look at some afternoon meetings during the winter months, which would help alleviate some of this overtime having to be banked? So summer months, I know it's difficult with everybody's jobs in the winter months. Is it possible we can look at some afternoon meetings? One month? Or?
And if I can suggest something, I think if we just look at the meetings itself, it's 72.05 hours. So, and I know this first year, certainly the first 9 months of it were very heavy for meetings. Some of the meetings we were having weekly. I think since the summertime and the end of summer, they've been a lot shorter, as you can see. There hasn't been many over 3 hours. 3.5, August 19th. So I say leave it as is, and we'll see and review it next year. Christine?
Thank you, Chair. Another factor to this is that in the 2-hour period, usually between 4 and 6 o'clock, due to time to go home and back and mileage concerns, etc., a lot of the management stay and work through a quiet time when the phones aren't ringing, and an awful lot can be accomplished to get caught up. So there's those hours that factor in over and above the meeting hours as well.
Councillor Rickey.
Was that extra 2 hours part
No.
of this?
No, I didn't include that. No, I just included, yes, in the white.
Yeah,
And
on this sheet
Yes,
for
yes,
total
yes, that's
bank
what the extra
time,
2
it's
hours,
included
yes.
there.
But I was just asked to do the meeting, exactly what amount of time we spent from 6, or whenever the meeting began till it ended. But no, in that's
Isn't
from 4 o'clock on.
from 4 o'clock
Yes.
on?
Like, prime example, tonight, sorry, Karen, sorry. Karen and I worked to amend the agenda. So we worked on that, plus I was doing some invoicing, Karen was doing some other stuff too. Like, the whole time, that from 4 to 6 till the meeting began, we were doing work for the township. And it's a quieter time too. Like, I know whenever I'm invoicing, or even prime example, when the treasurer is busy in her office, it's kind of a quiet time for her too. Then we don't have other staff coming in asking about information and stuff. She has kind of 2 hours that phones don't ring, and yes.
And I understand that. But at the end of the day, when we're looking at extra hours here, I mean, we could look at our staff and they could be here 12 hours a day and never be done. You know what I'm saying? Every day. So I think we just have to start to perhaps minimize those hours. I think we've got to, from that 4 to 6 o'clock, that would be a way that we begin, is that 2 hours. And it's a long enough day. I think you employees, not just that, you deserve a 2-hour break. Go and have some dinner and take a break to come back. Just a suggestion. It's a long day.
Councillor Mackay?
I'm looking at these numbers now, and it's only, October 7th, so they have another almost 3 months. So what hours where will they be then? That's a lot to ask people. It makes people bitter when they're not getting paid for their time. And you can say it's part of their job, but we all know that pisses people off. And you're asking people to come in, do extra work with no
Just to clarify, in a lot of cases, we're not the ones that are asking them to come in. It's the CAO that's requesting them to come in for certain things. If they're not on the agenda until, if it's a roads, and I don't see Mr. Meisner here for when it comes to roads, but he could simply be at home and text and say, okay, I'm up in 10 minutes or whatever, I can come over. I know that doesn't apply for a lot of people that work far away, but it does apply for some that perhaps they don't need to be here for the whole from 4 o'clock on or from 3:30 whenever Mr. Meisner gets off, as an example, to the time that he has to be here. So I say leave it as is and see where we pan out. I don't see any other municipalities have increased from 70 hours, and most municipalities have their meetings at nighttime. Mayor Johnson.
Yeah, I think I agree with, it's part of the salary that's known up front, and I think we got to move on here, and why don't we just rehash this at budget time? November.
For what reason?
Or if we're ready to make a decision, it just doesn't sound like we're going over and over and over the same stuff. That's all I'm thinking. Is there a motion?
There is a motion. I would certainly like to see it go back and have other municipalities surveyed to see what their overtime policy is for management, to see if they've increased it from 70 hours, and when their meetings are held, and who may or may not attend. That's my recommendation with regards to that. I can put this motion on the table that is recommending that a new overtime policy, or if we just simply set this aside for now until we get further information from staff. It's up to you, Councillor Olmsted.
I'd like to table it, move on, and get talking with some of the staff about it between now and whatever, November.
Okay. Thank you. And the next up is Protective Services Committee. Chair Kathy Rieger, do you want to take 2 minutes? 2 minutes, please, just 2 minutes. Thank you.